What if the world's biggest markets turned their backs on America's farms in a single night? Is Canada's shadowy trade victory hiding a cursed secret that could haunt us all? If you're ready to dive into this chilling mystery, drop a quick like and subscribe to uncover more true haunting tales with us. It's April 9th, 2025, and the Kansas sky burns crimson as the sun dips below endless rows of wheat. Tom Harlan, a third-generation farmer, stands in his field, clutching a crumpled letter from his biggest buyer in Japan. "We regret to inform you," it begins, "your shipments are no longer needed. No warning, no explanations, a cold, final cut." Overnight, his contracts with Japan, South Korea, and Thailand vanished like ghosts in the wind. Why would entire nations abandon America's heartland? What's Canada hiding that's left farmers like Tom staring into an abyss of uncertainty? I first heard whispers of this story in January 2025, late at night, scrolling through trade reports. On X, the posts were cryptic, almost paranoid, hinting at a dark trade secret orchestrated by Canada. The deeper I dug, the more it haunted me, not just the economics, but the eerie silence around it, like a curse nobody dared name. Let's unravel this mystery, a tale of betrayal, hidden deals, and a nation's food supply caught in a chilling, global game. Imagine if you were there, standing in Tom's dusty boots, watching decades of sweat and system, and blood vanish into thin air. Your family's legacy, your livelihood, gone without a trace. The U.S. was once the world's breadbasket, exporting $28 billion in agricultural goods to Asia. In 2024 alone, wheat, soy, corn, beef, feeding nations like Japan and South Korea. But in the spring of 2025, something shifted. Asian supermarkets from Tokyo to Bangkok began pulling U.S. products off their shelves, replacing them with Canadian goods. It wasn't just a business decision, it felt like a coordinated, ghostly exodus, leaving American farmers like Tom reeling. Let's rewind to March 2025, when the first tremors hit. President Donald Trump, freshly re-elected, ignited a trade war with a vengeance. On February 1st, he slapped 25% tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China, citing national security and the fentanyl crisis. Canada, stung by tariffs on steel and aluminum, hit back with counter-tariffs on U.S. tech and agriculture. By April 2nd, Trump escalated, terminating USMCA trade talks with Canada, accusing them of unfair trade practices. Asian markets, already wary of U.S. supply chain disruptions, began to pivot. Japan, South Korea, and Thailand cited unreliable deliveries and quality concerns, turning to Canada's wheat, canola, and beef. Here's where it gets unsettling. Just think about this. How do entire countries, with intricate supply chains, shift suppliers overnight? It's like a switch flipped in the dark. On X, users like @Skeptican speculated about Canada's non-GMO purity winning over Asia, while others whispered of secret deals. The truth lies in a web of trade moves, economic leverage, and a chilling sense of betrayal. Canada, under Prime Minister Mark Carney, had been quietly building its agricultural empire. The Trans Mountain Pipeline, completed in 2024, tripled Canada's oil exports, freeing up resources to boost farming. By June 2025, Canada's meat exports to Asia surged 2.6%, while U.S. exports plummeted 18.5%. Picture yourself in a bustling Seoul market. April 2025. Shelves once stocked with American flour and soybeans now brim with Canadian brands, their labels boasting non-GMO and sustainable. It's not just business, it's a silent takeover. Canada's strict agricultural standards, emphasizing clean farming, gave it an edge. Meanwhile, U.S. farmers faced port bottlenecks and soaring freight costs, worsened by Trump's $1.5 million fees on China-linked ships. A Kansas freight consultant, J. O'Neill, noted, The US is now an unattractive destination for over half the world's fleet. Asian buyers, burned by delays, saw Canada as a safer bet. But there's a darker layer. In June 2025, a Chinese researcher and her partner were charged in Michigan with smuggling a crop-destroying pathogen. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins called it evidence of foreign adversaries targeting America's food supply. Suddenly, Asian rejections of US goods for biological concerns didn't seem so far-fetched. Was it paranoia, or was something sinister at play? Imagine the chill running down your spine as a farmer, checking shipment logs only to find contaminated scrawled across your life's work. I've got to be honest, this story hit me hard. Growing up in a small farming town, I saw how farmers pour their souls into the land. The idea of entire markets vanishing, labeled as tainted, feels like a personal wound. Would you trust a system that could turn on you so fast? The U.S. Department of Agriculture reported Chinese investors owned 277,336 acres of American farmland in 2023, a tiny fraction, but enough to spark fear. On July 8, 2025, Rollins banned Chinese farmland purchases, citing national security. The timing was uncanny. As the ban hit, Canada's exports to Asia spiked, as if they'd been waiting in the shadows. Let's set the scene. In a Kansas diner, July 2025. Farmers huddle over coffee, their voices low and bitter. Canada's stealing our markets, one says. They're calling our wheat cursed. Across the Pacific, Japanese wholesalers praised Canadian grain for its purity, while U.S. shipments rotted in ports. Thailand, in talks with the U.S., demanded lower tariffs for imports, but turned to Canada when Trump refused. It felt like a betrayal, a ghostly hand guiding Asia away from America. Canada's dark trade secret isn't just clever marketing. Trade reports and ex-posts suggest Canada struck quiet deals with Asian nations, offering discounted grains and long-term contracts. Some claimed Canada exploited fears of U.S. crop sabotage, branding American goods as risky. No smoking gun, but the coincidence is eerie. China, hit by U.S. fentanyl tariffs, became Canada's top crude oil buyer via the Trans Mountain Pipeline by June 2025. Was Canada playing both sides, securing Asia's trust while the U.S. sank in trade war chaos? Imagine standing in a Tokyo supermarket, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Canadian canola oil and wheat flour dominate the shelves, while American brands are gone, like they never existed. Behind the scenes, a global chess game unfolds. China's anti-dumping probe into Canadian canola, worth $3.7 billion in 2023, mysteriously excluded it from tariffs, hinting at strategic negotiations. Japan's rice imports from the U.S. dropped 20% in May, while Canada's soared. South Korea slashed U.S. wine imports after tariffs hit. The numbers are brutal. U.S. agricultural exports to Asia fell 28.3% in June 2025. This wasn't just economics. It felt like a curse. Farmers like Tom faced foreclosure, their fields turning to dust. Some sold crops to Canada at a loss, desperate to survive. I can't shake the image of those empty fields at dusk, the wind whispering through abandoned stalks. Would you keep fighting, knowing the world had moved on? The suspense lies in the why. Was it Canada's cunning, Asia's fear, or a deeper plot? The U.S.-China trade war, reignited by Trump's 10% blanket tariff on Chinese goods, fueled global uncertainty. China's retaliation slashed U.S. soy exports by 51.8%, while Brazil and Argentina filled the gap. Canada, meanwhile, slipped into Asia's markets like a shadow. Let's talk about Canada's moves. Carney's government dismantled interprovincial trade barriers, streamlining exports. The Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, CPTPP, gave Canada an edge, offering lower tariffs to Japan and Vietnam. Canada's non-GMO canola and beef, showcased at soul food shows, became Asia's gold standard. The US, tangled in trade disputes and port delays, couldn't compete. A Singapore-based trader noted, "Importers aren't taking risks with the US anymore, but the mystery deepens." Posts hinted at Canadian lobbying in Asia, spreading doubts about US crop safety. No hard evidence, but the timing of the pathogen scare and Asia's pivot raises questions. Was Canada's clean image too perfect? The US faced a 44% drop in China-bound vessel traffic by April 2025, crippling exports. Farmers like Tom were left in the dark, their livelihoods vanishing like a ghost town. Picture a Minnesota soybean field, the harvest unsold, the farmer's face etched with despair. The National Corn Growers Association warned that a trade war could cost billions, with no market to absorb the surplus. I keep thinking about Tom's words to a reporter. "We thought we were untouchable." That hits hard. Have you ever felt like the ground beneath you shifted without warning? The US tried to pivot, offering subsidies through the Market Facilitation Program. But the $14.3 billion in 2019 barely dented the damage. The lesson here is stark. Trust is a fragile thing. America's farms didn't just lose markets, they lost faith. Canada's rise was no accident. It was years of strategy, trust building, and seizing the moment. The US, caught in tariff wars and paranoia, left an opening. Asian markets, burned by delays and fears of sabotage, chose stability, but the cost was human farmers like Tom, their legacies fading like forgotten spirits. As we close, imagine those Kansas fields under a pale moon, silent and still. Tom sold his last tractor, his family's dreams slipping away. He said, the world had other plans. Maybe his story will fade into history's pages. But it leaves a haunting truth. In a world of hidden deals and broken trust, nothing's certain, not even the land that feeds us. So, next time you pass a supermarket shelf, ask yourself, who's really pulling the strings? If this eerie tale kept you hooked, share in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. Stay curious.